Hi, I'm Nathan from Serious Geeks, and in this video I'm going to talk about the Storm Speeder Hammerstrike. The model for this is on the screen now, and you can see the datasheet alongside it. Usual caveats apply, we do not know the full points value for this model. My estimation, judging from the weapons, the stat line, the speed of it, as well as the actual other aspects to it such as the power level and the keywords, is it will be approximately 160 points. What's the role of this model? Well, it appears to be a very fast and capable anti-tank platform. Its role will be to get into position to destroy a vehicle very quickly, or a monster of course, very similar in Warhammer 40,000 nowadays. To enable it to destroy vehicles, it has a melter destroyer, which is a heavy 3 multi-melter, very incredible. Still the same 24-inch range, but when you're moving 16 inches a turn, that's not an issue. As a backup to this vehicle, it also has Hammerstrike missiles, which give it strength 8, minus 3 AP and 3 damage missiles, which are actually very powerful. This vehicle has 5 strength 8 shots a turn, all of which will penetrate armour quite readily and will do a lot of damage to vehicles and monsters, as well as characters that may be hit by them. It's also worth pointing out that the Storm Speeder Hammerstrike is very useful at killing heavy infantry, and by that I mean 3 wound Gravis models or Custodes. This vehicle also has a Crackstorm grenade launcher, which is not particularly great, but it can contribute to the damage output of the vehicle, so it's not to be ignored. Overall, I believe this vehicle can get into position to do a lot of damage to its targets, but it does have a few glaring weaknesses. The first most notable weakness I see of this model is the stat line of 10 wounds. It has a profile that diminishes with damage. At only toughness 6, this means that only 1 or 2 damaging hits can take it below a bracket to make it a lot less effective, particularly when it becomes ballistic skill 4 or worse. This is essentially a glass cannon in that regard, in that it pays quite a premium for points. I don't see it being any less than 150 points, not with a 9 power level, and as such, it's paying quite a lot of points for a very powerful anti-tank weaponry, but not particularly good for its survivability. I don't believe this is a completely bad unit, I just think we have to be very careful when we judge it. I think in an army with repulsors, impulsors, other vehicles, potentially other land speeders, rhinos, all sorts of other vehicles, this one could add a little bit of target saturation that has to be dealt with, or it's going to blow something up. So it has got a place, I believe, but it will have a bit of competition in some places. Most notable, the new Gladiator Tank, which is going to be very swift and heavily armed. Although I don't doubt that people will find a place for this unit in their army, I do look at it and think I could have a slightly less heavily armed but more heavily armoured vehicle in the form of a Gladiator that is almost as swift as well and is probably better off at hiding simply because it has a lower profile, depending on what terrain you've got against it. I mean, obviously obscuring terrain means that it doesn't matter anyway. It will always be hidden if it's behind obscuring terrain, but then some terrain pieces might not have that keyword. So, like the heavy intercessors, I believe that this unit all hinges on the points value. It needs to be cheap enough to be worthwhile, considering it is essentially an easier tank to kill. Getting this vehicle to where it needs to be to do a lot of damage is actually fairly easy with its high move value, but that also contends with other units that might do the same thing for cheaper. An attack bike squadron, for example, would likely come in at less points value than this and still do just as much damage, if not more, to a single vehicle. Classic land speeders also perform a similar role as this one, and there's also the option of other anti-tank options such as Eradicators, that if you're a Primaris player and that's how you want to theme your army, they're probably blowing up vehicles for you anyway. The biggest strength I see in this is if you've already filled out your heavy support choices with other options, and therefore you want to get some more heavy firepower into your army, and this is likely to be a fast attack choice, so you would choose this for that very reason. Outside those circumstances, I think there are better and cheaper options for blowing up vehicles. The last thing to talk about is the keywords. It actually gains the Raven Wing keyword, which is further evidence of how things are going to work in the new Space Marine Codex alongside future supplements, which we guess the Dark Angels will have one of. Also notable is there's no Primaris keyword, which is very similar to other vehicles in the current Space Marine Codex, such as the Redemptor Dreadnought. Also notable by its absence is the lack of a core keyword. Kind of a given. We knew that mostly it's going to be infantry that benefit from being core, but this is further evidence that it's not going to be a lot of the firepower vehicles that we often see. This will mean that its role of moving around the table and destroying targets is actually going to be more often utilised rather than hanging around with a character. So from that perspective, I think it's a good thing. However, when it comes to competitive play, will this have the power to be as good for its points as certain other choices that might have the core keyword, especially when you're considering that you're taking out tanks? I'm not sure. It remains to be seen. Like the heavy intercessors, I think this is either going to be a really valuable unit for its points cost, or it's going to be too expensive for what it does. Anyway, that's pretty much all there is to talk about this, so that'll be it for me. If you have any thoughts on the Storm Speeder, or if you think I'm wrong on this, let me know. I'm happy to be corrected. It's a bit of conjecture at this point because we don't know the full points values, etc., and what stratagem support we get. And I look forward to seeing you all in the comment section. Please like and subscribe to support the channel, and peace out.